So we're doing this series on movies right now, and when I originally planned this series, which was last July, I picked out some of my favorite movies, and I had my kids' involvement, and they wanted me to do some of the ones, if you've been here, you've seen Meet the Robinsons and Zootopia and things like that. And then I picked one of my own. I wanted to do Horton Hears a Who. So my kids were like, Horton Hears a Who, really? I mean, the other ones are like Zootopia, that's great, but not Horton Hears a Who. What's the value of that? And I think by the end of this time today, you're going to see why this is such an important theme to be talking about. For those of you who aren't familiar at all with Horton Hears a Who, it's a story of an elephant named Horton. So, the big elephant. So he's in the jungle one day, he sees this little speck go by, and as the speck goes by, he hears a sound on the speck, and he realizes, oh my goodness, there's something living on this speck. And so he catches the speck, and it turns out that on this tiny little speck floating through the jungle is an entire city, a community called Whoville. And the Whos live in Whoville, and this is the... Oh, there's the speck. Yeah, this is great. I'm already forgetting slides. So there's the speck, and it's on that little flower, but this next slide is the mayor. So the mayor is the one that Horton gets to hear and communicate with. And so the whole movie is about how Horton the elephant is going to try and get this community to a safe place where they can just exist and not be destroyed by all the things that could crush them and destroy them in this jungle. So it's a great story, and there are a lot of different themes in the movie that I had a totally different theme in mind. I thought that what this was going to be about today was about standing up for others when they can't stand up for themselves, and that's not the way it went. There's a great line in the story, if you've ever read the book to your children or grandchildren, there's a story about a person's a person no matter how small, which is really an important theme because, I've got a daughter that's about 4'2", her name is Lisa, and so we're recording today, and I'm going to make sure Lisa gets to see that. Hi, Lisa, just for you, so you're still a person. And anyway, I love that. But none of those are the themes that I ended up going with. Instead, I just really started prepping this and thinking about, and again, the point of doing a movie series is to see how the movies interact with what we believe and what God teaches. So to line up our beliefs with God's belief. And as I started going through this theme, there was a theme that really emerged, and what you see in the movie is maybe one of the most important themes we can talk about, and it's how to make your life, how your life can make a difference in this world. That's one of the most important things. I don't know about you, but it seems like there are two groups of people going through life right now. One group of people, they're characterized by what this man said recently. If you know football at all, you know Tom Brady. He's the quarterback for the Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Recently, actually a couple of years ago, when they'd only won 3 Super Bowl championships, he was being interviewed on 60 Minutes. And the interviewer said, this whole experience, this whole upward trajectory of your life, he said, what have you learned about yourself, and what kind of an effect does it have on you to win so much? And so Tom Brady said, I put a lot of pressure on me. He said, when you feel like you're ultimately responsible for everything, that's a lot of pressure. He said, why? He said, why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey, man, this is what it is. I've reached my goal, my dream, my life. But me, he said, I think, God, it's got to be more than this. And the interviewer said, well, what's the answer? And Tom Brady said, I wish I knew. I wish I knew. So here's representative of one group of people going through their life on planet Earth. He's got everything, right? Everything. Super rich, super model, as his girlfriend or wife, I don't know if he's ever married her. Super famous, super successful. And he's sitting here going, there's got to be something more, unless something's missing. His life doesn't feel complete. And then contrasted, on the other side, there are people going through this life, they don't have anywhere, you don't know their names. You couldn't put pictures up there because you don't know them. And they don't have the wealth, and they don't have the fame, and they don't have the same success in what the world defines as success, and they live with a sense of peace and joy and contentment. 2 groups, same planet, different experiences. Why? And the real question, of course, that I want you to think about is, which group do you relate to more? Which group? You see, what I actually believe is that you and I, when God made us, he made us very intentionally. He put us here on this earth to make a difference. And if you want to live with the joy and peace and contentment that God has for you, you got to discover what that spot is for you on this planet and start to make a difference. And that's when you're going to really experience the life that God has for you. So that's what we're going to use this movie to do. Talk about an important theme. So grab your notes, grab a pen, let's go ahead and get started. How to make a difference in this world. First thing, so number one, I want you to write this down. First thing is you got to learn to watch for people in need. Watch for people in need. And that's where this all starts in the movie. If you've seen the movie, when the speck goes by, and Horton knows that, oh my goodness, there's somebody on that little speck. They're about to fall into the water, and so that's why he grabs the flower and he catches the speck because he's going to make sure they don't drown. And there are all kinds of, he sees the need. He's thinking about just putting them out in the jungle. He looks around and he's like, oh my goodness, these animals will eat him, and these animals will crush this planet, this little tiny Whoville. So he sees the need of the people around him, and so he steps in to protect them because they are literally a world in trouble without him. And I thought, what an apt description of the world that we live in. We live in a world that's in trouble. I don't think it takes too much convincing for all of you to get that, right? How many things could I put on a slide like this? Child slavery, child prostitution, bullying in school, starvation, no clean water, lack of education, poverty, homelessness. We could go on and on, right? We live in a world in trouble. Now, there are two reactions to a list like that. The first reaction is when you encounter those kind of things is to look away. The second reaction when you encounter those things is to look toward them. We all make that decision every single time we encounter any of these big world issues, any of these real world needs. We are either looking toward or we're looking away. One of the things that made Jesus so incredible was his ability to look toward tremendous pain. By the way, he was revealing the heart of the Father toward all of us when he was doing this. So one time, one of my favorite stories in the Bible is a story about Jesus and his disciples. They were walking up. They came up to this little village, and as they were coming up to the village, there was a funeral procession coming out of the village. And a widow was leading the way and about to bury her only son. So she'd already buried her husband, and now she was going to bury her son. And in that society, what that meant was, there were no government policies or no government protection for widows. You depended upon, and again, it was a male-dominated society, and so you depended upon your husband to provide for you, and he's dead, and so you would depend upon your son to provide for you, and he's dead, and so the future of this woman is hopeless poverty. She is in so much trouble, and Jesus walks up with this group of disciples, and you see this funeral procession, and everyone's crying, and you can just imagine the heartbreak, and this is such a common phrase in the Gospels, the stories that record the life of Jesus. Look at what it says. When the Lord, and here's the key phrase, he saw her, his heart overflowed with compassion. So leave that verse up for a moment. You're always looking either toward the pain around you or away from the pain around you, always. And one of the things that made Jesus so incredible was his ability to look toward the pain and see the pain of people around. So he saw her. He saw her, this grieving widow, this grieving mom. And notice the connection between what he saw and what he felt. Your heart is going to be driven by what you're allowing yourself to see. Because when he saw her, compassion was the natural outcome of that. His heart was full of compassion for her. It's connected. So, again, this is what I think is one of the characteristics that made Jesus such an incredible role model for all of us, was his ability to look toward and let that affect his heart. Now, the problem with that, of course, is, ow, that really hurts. I mean, are you kidding me? Recently I was in Chicago, and I got to go down for a couple of days to Chicago on a business trip, and while I was there, I was on Michigan Avenue, the fanciest place in Chicago, and if you've ever been down there, you know what you see. You walk along and you see homeless people. And it's been a while since I went to school in Chicago, so it's been a while since I was there, but, I saw them. What was also interesting to watch was the reaction of people around me who would not see them. They would look away. They would pretend like they're not there. I get it. Because if you look, it hurts. And here's the problem with all this, okay? That's the natural reaction. Many of you have done that. You've been in situations where you saw something that hurt you and you just looked away and you would not let yourself think about it or contemplate it. The problem is that what we do when we look away is that we only look inward, and then our world becomes this tiny little place where it's really just all about us. If you want to live a life of meaninglessness, purposelessness, no matter what you accomplish in this world, do that. It will shrink your world down to nothing. And you will live with a sense something is missing, because something is missing. God didn't put you here to look inward. God put us here to look outward, like Jesus did, to see them. And let our hearts be filled with compassion. And it's painful to live that way. I get it. But it's the only way that God created us to live, because it's what He's like. Our Father sees everything. And His heart breaks, and He wants us to be like Him. So, allow me to do something right now that will be a little bit difficult, but we got to practice what we're preaching. So I want you to see. I gave you a list earlier. Let me ask you to look at them. So here, I had homelessness on the list. This is one of our veterans. He was willing to fight and die for us. And this is what he lives like now. Do you see him? Take a look at this picture. 45 million slaves in the world today. 45 million. The vast majority of them are children and women. Sometimes slavery in our world today, more slaves today than any other time in the history of our world, sometimes slavery just means that they work for nothing for somebody who abuses them and takes advantage of them, like this child. Do you see him? Take a look at this. This is their grocery store. Do you see them? How about this? That's her plumbing system in her community. She's about to drink that water. Do you see her? Take a look at this. That's his. Take a look at this picture. The vast majority of the sex slave industry are young girls in our world who are tortured by corrupt men at a young age. Some of them born into it, never having another experience in life. Do you see her? How about this one? And such an issue of starvation in our world that, unfortunately, in a time when we have so much, take a look at this last one. Do you see them? Okay. So you see why this is so hard, right? Because if you really let yourself look toward the needs of this world, it should have an impact on your heart. It should create the compassion that Jesus lived with, that He modeled. He saw her and had compassion. And the only way we're going to be like Jesus is to look toward them and let it move our hearts toward compassion too. And that hurts. But it's the only way to find your purpose in this world. You want to find meaning in this world? You turn it in on yourself, you will never know meaning and purpose there. So here's the prayer. I put it on your notes. I put it up here too. What I want to encourage you to pray for this whole next week, actually, I want you to get in the habit of doing it, is, Father, what needs in this world do you want me to start seeing? Because I promise you, in your community, in your neighborhood, in your work environment, eventually, for those of you going back to school, in your school environment, I promise you every day you're going to be with people who are in need. And there's a cause that God put you here on earth to make a difference. So if you're going to make a difference in this world, you're going to start here by saying, God, what needs do you want me to pay attention to in this world? What do you want me to see? So that's where you start. The second thing is, once you start doing that, number two, now you're going to start to serve. Now you're going to start to serve. You watch for those people in need. You say, God, I want to live my heart with my life open to the needs of the people around me. You just show me what you want. Once he does, you start to serve. And again, this is what happens in the movie that's really kind of interesting. So, in the movie, they're about to fall into the water, and Horton saves them. He has to protect them. They almost get stepped on. There are people out to destroy them. In this scene, he's had to search through this giant field to find the one flower. It's a tremendous... He reorganizes his whole life around serving these people on this tiny little speck. In many ways, Horton is a very interesting picture of what Jesus was like. Now, that's probably something that never crossed your mind if you ever read this book to your kids. But it's a very interesting parallel. The Bible teaches us that God exists. He's never known a beginning. There was never a time where there was not God. God exists beyond time. Hard for us to understand. And he exists in something called the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit. God exists in relationship. And this God of relationship wanted a relationship with human beings for whatever reason. So he created this planet called Earth. He put us on here. And his original intention was that you and I would be in a relationship with him, and we would be able to experience what he experiences with the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, only he'd be sharing that with us, and it was supposed to be this incredible, beautiful thing. And then instead, if you know the story, we're like, yeah, we kind of want to do our own thing. So we're going to go our own way, and we rebelled against him and his rules, and this messed up, broken world is the consequence of all that, and we've just all continued that same pattern of rebellion. And yet, our God could not sit anymore watching the pain and suffering of this world. He had to do something. By the way, this is really important to understand. You want to know the heart of the God that we just sang to? He is a God who longs to serve us. Isn't that crazy? Does that make any sense to anyone else? That God wants to serve us? That makes no sense. And yet Jesus said, you want to know what the Father's like? Look at me. And what did Jesus come to do? God the Son left the throne of heaven, became one of his own creations, entered into the world 2,000 years ago, and lived as a servant. As a matter of fact, he knew what he was coming to do. He told his disciples, and anyone who listened, Matthew 20:28, he said, even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others, and then to give his life as a ransom for many. He knew what he was coming to do. He chose to serve and said, you want to know what my Father's like? This is what the heart of my Father. He is a servant. When he sees you in need, his heart breaks. And he wants to serve and meet your needs. When he sees people in need here, his heart breaks. He wants to serve them. He wants to use us to do it. The story that I was just telling you about Jesus and the widow, I love how that story ends. He goes up to the funeral procession, and here's what happens next. He says to the widow, don't cry. And he walks over to the coffin, and he touches it, and the bear stopped, and he speaks to the dead guy. And he says, young man, I tell you, get up. And the boy sat up and began to talk. And Jesus gave him back to his mother. I mean, just incredible power, driven by incredible compassion. This is the God that we sing to. He is a God who is so compassionate and so powerful. And he was here to serve, and he still serves, and we're supposed to be like him. And some of you look at a verse like that and say, well, that'd be great. I wish I had the power to do that. And then I could really serve people. We could, if we had that power, we could shut down every hospital. Sorry for those of you who work at hospitals, we could shut down every hospital. Right? We could shut down every clinic. It would be great if we could do that. It would be amazing. So we're like, well, I don't have that kind of power. Well, what we underestimate is the tremendous power of serving. The most powerful people in this world are the servants. They're the ones changing the very world that we live in. And they change it because of what serving itself represents. Serving, I put a few things up here on the screen. Serving is when we are most like God. Our God is a compassionate, serving God. And we are most like him when we are serving. It's how you discover what you're here to do. Is you know it'll be some aspect of serving, not being served. It's also what God uses to change lives on this planet. That girl haunts me. The one being drug away, she haunts me since I saw that picture. What if we could find her? What if we could buy her out of slavery, or better yet, get those evil men arrested and put in prison and set her free that way? And what if we could be a part of helping her get a whole new life? You think that'd change her by serving her? Imagine how much our serving would change her life. Serving is what changes people. But also, and most importantly, well, maybe not most importantly, it changes us. I mean, there's nothing like serving, knowing you're making an impact, knowing your life actually counts, that it's making a difference, seeing other people change. Man, it's what we were created for, because it's what our God is like. And it's how we're going to find our way of making a difference. It's why there are over 2,000 verses in the Bible that talk about this right here. Take a look at this verse. Zechariah says, "This is what the Lord of Heaven's army says. I want you to judge fairly, show mercy and kindness to one another." And then look at this last sentence. "Do not oppress widows, orphans, foreigners, and the poor." There are, like I said, 2,000 verses about these commands. Because in those days, 2,000 years ago, those were the most vulnerable in that society. They were the most vulnerable. Yeah, they still are, aren't they? They are. And his command is, you don't treat them badly, because the heart of our God is to serve them. The heart of his people must be to serve them. This is who we are to be. This is how we're supposed to live our lives. So, on your notes, I put another prayer here. So I'm going to want you to pray a couple of prayers this week. So put this in a prominent place where you're going to think about it. Type it in your phone. God, show me who you want me to serve for you today. That is almost my everyday prayer. I've gotten this one down so that it's almost my everyday prayer. I rarely miss a day of saying that. So I work in a office, in a cubicle, way in the back of this big, big building. So I walk up these stairs and I walk all the way to the back of this. I mean, the building is so big. And I pass, I don't even know how many people on the way back to my little cubicle in Cubicle Land. And it's way back in the back corner, and so this is what I pray constantly as I walk to my desk. Father, who do you want me to serve here today? Because every day where I work, there's somebody whose shoulders are sagging, somebody who's in a lot of emotional pain, and if you learn to live your life with your eyes open, then you will see what God sees, and then you can step in and serve. And so how do you serve them? I mean, the simplest way, because I don't want you to think, well, if I can't serve and make a difference in the sex slave industry, then I'm not really doing it. No, you can make a difference just where you are right now, with who you work with, and who you live next to, or who you see in the grocery store. Just by trying to live your life with your eyes open to what the needs you see, and then you just serve them in the simplest. What I've been doing from the beginning of this year on is I've been praying that prayer, and I've just been watching for who looks like they're a little down. So and then I just reach out to them. So this is actually one of the things that happened on March 1st of this last year. I saw one of my friends. She is a leader in my department. She's a good young leader. She really cares about what she does, and she cares about the people she works with. So you can have leaders who care about what they do, and they don't care about you. But she cares on both sides. And so I could tell she'd come out of a meeting, she looked beat up. She looked like she was about to cry. And so I sat at my desk and I just wrote her. And I said, I don't know what you're going through. I said, I saw you walking out, you looked so beat up. And I read, she wrote something that made me sense, oh no, she's having a hard time. And so one of the things that, if you don't know this, most people are very aware of all that they do wrong. If I asked you to give me a list of all the ways you're blowing it, many of you could give me a very, very, very long list. But if I said, tell me what your strengths are, what you're really good at, you'd be like, I don't know. That's the average human being. And so part of what God's purpose for us in this world is to be a mirror back to people about the beautiful things they bring into this world. The good things they bring. So I love doing this. So I could tell she was down. I just wrote her a note. And then I said, please don't get discouraged. I said, do you know how few people are like you? And then I listed some of the things that I love about working with this person. I said, you're a strategic thinker. You're positive. You're a learner. And I wrote in quotes, so very rare. Very few people are learners. And she really takes this seriously. I said, you're nice. You're relationally intelligent. You're driven. You're humble enough to admit a mistake. I said, these are all leadership competencies. They're very visible in you. You are a good leader. And as you can tell, I have a lot of respect for you. I said, maybe you didn't need this, but you just seem so down. And when you were walking out, I felt compelled to write this. So. Next morning, she got it. And at 8:06 the next morning, she wrote back, she said, "You have no idea how defeated I was yesterday." She wrote this huge note of thanks to me and said, "Thank you for sending this note." I, like everyone, it's good to hear when people see the qualities that you work hard to demonstrate most of the time. In my personal note inbox, I have a whole bunch of emails just like that. Because every day, all around us, there are people in need. The issue isn't are they in need, the issue is are we even looking, are we even available? For some of you, it should be your goal every week to write one note. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It just has to be what I like about you. Hey, that's a song. Right? That's all it has to be. I know I want to sing it, but I won't. So it's what I like. Because people aren't aware of it. They're very aware of their flaws and how screwed up and broken they are. And when God brings someone in their life who says, "This is what I see that I just love about you," it can change their life. Okay? So you want to make a difference in this world, watch for people in need because they're all around you, start to serve them. And then the third thing is you got to keep going despite opposition. And this is the strangest part of this whole message. Keep going despite opposition. But it's really reflected well in the movie. So Horton is just trying to do the right thing, right? He's just trying to save people. And nobody believes him. They don't believe that there's anyone on there. And so he faces all this opposition. There's a kangaroo named Jane. She's out to stop him because she thinks he's polluting, destroying the chemistry of the jungle. And so the Wickersham brothers are out to stop him. This next slide here. And then the vulture, I can't remember, Vlad something, is out to stop him. I just love the vulture's brain. So all this opposition, you're just trying to do the right thing. This is what's so crazy about the world that we live in. If you haven't discovered this yet, you will if you really get serious about making a difference in this world like God has created you to do, is how much opposition you will face when you're just trying to do the right thing. It is nuts. I mean, Jesus encountered the same thing. So he came to serve in this world. Jesus became one of us, entered the world, wanted to serve. So who do you go to serve? You go to serve the most broken people, prostitutes, thieves, because he wanted to bring the love of God into their lives because look how broken their lives are. So he went to eat with them and spend time with them and show them the love of God and show them a way out of the life that they were trapped in. What a good thing, right? You're just trying to do good. And the people around him loved him for doing this, didn't they? They just thought, way to go, Jesus. Go get him. Yeah, the religious people were the worst of all. Look what they did. You know the story. Mark chapter 2, verse 16 says, when the teachers of religious law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with tax collectors and other sinners, they asked his disciples, why does he eat with such scum? Like that translation. And he got opposition. He faced ridicule for doing what he had come to do, to serve those who needed him the most. Someone once said, Jesus would have destroyed his reputation just to serve the people that needed him the most. He didn't care about the reputation. He cared about doing the right thing. But it's so interesting. You live in this world and you try and do the right thing. You will face opposition. You'll face ridicule. Remember one time when we were raising money for Feed My Starving Children, this wonderful organization, and this wealthy woman came up and gave like $20. It was a small amount for her to give. And she's like, well, you might as well try and empty out the ocean with a teaspoon. So here's my $20. Because it's pointless and you can't do anything about it anyway. And you'll encounter that. Start serving. It's like, here are the needs. I'm going to do the right thing. Do you know at one point Jesus' brothers and family came to take him away because they thought he was crazy? Sometimes the people that you'll face the most opposition from are the people that are closest to you and your relatives who think you're weird for doing that and sacrificing for that. And they will not be supported. And you just keep going. You do the right thing regardless of what other people think. Because it's exactly what Jesus did too. So I really want to be careful. I do not want you to think that in order to really make a difference in this world, you've got to, sell your house and go start an orphanage in Mozambique or anything like that. You are already exactly where God needs you to be to make a difference if you'll do these things. Watch for the people in need, start to serve them, and keep going. So I wanted to show you this in a very different way. So I came across this video a while ago. I've been waiting to show you because this is a good one. Take a look at this.
Just for filling the spirit. Here's Steve Hartman on road.
When the lunch bell rings at Boca High in Boca Raton, Florida, 3,400 kids spill into the courtyard and split into their social groups. But not everyone gets included. Here at Boca High and at schools across the country, someone always sits alone.
It's not a good feeling like you're by yourself, and that's something I don't usually go through.
Dennis Esteban is a Haitian immigrant. When he came here in first grade, he says he felt isolated, especially at lunch. Now he's a senior, he's pouting, but he has not forgotten that first grade feeling.
To me, it's like if we don't try to go make that change, who's going to do it?
So with some friends, Dennis started a club called We Dine Together.
We died. Together. We died. Together. We died. Together.
Their mission is to go into the courtyard at lunchtime to make sure no one is starving for company.
You did? When did you first come here?
For new kids especially, the club is a godsend.
It's Gabriel.
Since it started last fall, hundreds of friendships have formed. Some very unlikely.
You're probably meeting kids you never would meet on the football team. Ever.
Gene Max Maridew actually quit the football team, gave up all the perks that come with it, just so he could spend more time with his club.
I don't mind not getting a football scholarship. This is what I really want to do.
Just imagine how different your teenage years would have been
What's your name?
if the coolest kids in school all of a sudden decided you mattered.
We get to know each other better.
It obviously takes a lot of empathy to devote your lunch period to this.
Yes.
Either that or first-hand experience.
I went from coming from a school that I always had friends to coming to where I had nobody. So
Club member Allie Seeley transferred 2 years ago. She says with no one to sit next to, lunch can be the most excruciating part of the day.
Sitting right there, it's honestly an issue. Meeting someone who actually cares and listens to what you have to say really makes a difference. And that could happen at lunch. That could happen at our club. It's going to make a difference.
And not just here at Boca High.
I'll be around tomorrow if you want to eat lunch together.
Dennis and his team are now trying to open chapters of We Dine Together at schools across the country. And maybe, when they're done showing kids how to make outsiders feel accepted, they can teach us adults, too. Steve Hartman, on the road in Boca Raton, Florida.
Isn't that cool? Just what we're talking about. And did you catch the line? Just imagine how much your teen years would have been different if the coolest kids in school suddenly decided that you mattered. It would have changed a lot of people's lives, wouldn't it? And like that girl said, it really makes a difference. Yes, it does. It makes a huge difference. Want to make a difference? That's what you're here for. Look around, who's in need? Hey, that kid's sitting alone every day. What can I do? I'll go talk to him. And they make a difference. That's how this works. So, one of the things that, if you know about me, I like to make sure that I want to make sure that the groups like this that we're part of, we're making a difference. I mean, you can go out and do this individually, but there are some things we can do together where we can really make a difference. And I told you earlier, I just was haunted by that picture of this girl. That's hard to get out of my head. So we're supposed to look toward it. So what can we do with something like this? I mean, the sex slave industry is such a huge thing. Well, years ago, we came across this amazing organization called Free the Girls. And if you haven't heard about this, just go to freethegirls.org. And you can sign up now. Their website's really different. They've got more information on there about this issue. You can sign up and get a newsletter from them regularly so you can keep looking toward it rather than looking away from the world that we live in. And if you've been a part of our time when I've spoken about this before, you know they have one of the most unique business models I've ever heard of. They ask people to donate bras. Because all around the world, people are still buying them, and the quality of what's sold here in America is so much better than what they get overseas. And so they can take bras made in America and sell them overseas, and they can make so much money off the sale of them. So what they do is they take girls like that, and they rescue them from the sex slave industry. But again, what's she supposed to do? She can be a lawyer, she can be a doctor, she has no schooling, she has been abused all her life. You know what they turn back to when they're free? Right back into that life, because they have no options. So this organization gives them an option. They train them. They make them business leaders in their community. And then they establish their stores with bras sent from all of us here. According to the website, about 750,000 bras, I think is what I read this morning, have been sent so far from America and around the world. And so they set these women up with stores. And they make them wealthy in their communities, so they don't ever have to go back to that lifestyle. One of my favorite organizations of all time, and probably because I got 4 daughters. We gotta free the girls. So, what I want to do is for the next 2 months, as I want to keep this issue in front of us for the next 2 months, and I'm asking you to go and buy bras. And men, don't delegate this. Okay? I know what it's like. It's like, yeah, honey, take the card and go buy some more. No. Nope. I'm asking you men to do it too. The next couple of months, I want to do what we can to see if we can raise enough to set that girl free. And it won't be her, of course. Wouldn't it be cool, though, if it was, if God's sense of humor was that way? I mean, that's God. He can do that. It's like, yep, that's the one. It'd be so cool. We won't know till heaven who it is. But why don't we do that together? We have our individual part, and we have our corporate part. Let's do this together. And over the next few months, let's bring your bras here. Won't that be fun? We'll take them back every week. So, but it's really important that you all do it. I mean, all of us. Don't delegate the serving act. Yeah, it's incredibly embarrassing to buy bras. Done that for guys. But it's so important. You were created to make a difference. If you start to do what God created you to do, you will feel something that you may not feel now. Because you weren't made for yourself. You were made to live like Jesus did. This externally focused life. So, a couple of things to start with. Buy a bra, buy a couple of them, bring them back over the next few months, we'll remind you. Start to pray those prayers. God, who do you want me to serve you today? Keep your eyes open. You will see people with their shoulders down. People are giving off signs that they're in pain. And then take a risk. Just write them a note. Hey, I don't even know if you need this. But I just saw you today. You looked a little down. I just want you to know how important you are to me, or how much I love this about you. It doesn't have to be long. It can be an email. A note. It doesn't matter. But serve it. And then just keep praying, God, what issue in this world do you want me to make a difference in? Now, for those of you who are just exploring your faith, there's an important reason why Jesus came. He didn't just come to serve physical needs and health needs. He came because the greatest need of all. The problem is that God is perfect and holy, and we have rebelled against him, and so we can't be with him. So Jesus came to bridge that gap. And what he came to do, like he says, is give his life for all of us. And when he died on the cross, he paid in full for everything that you and I have ever done that's wrong, so that we could be in relationship with him forever. Let me have you bow your heads. For some of you, this concept of serving God is so foreign. You got angry God, you got distant God, hostile God. But serving God, it just doesn't click, but it's who Jesus revealed he really is. He is in love with you. He loves you so deeply. Your needs matter to him. And he wants a real relationship with you. And if you'll let him, he'll serve you today. All you have to do is reach out to him in faith. Say something like this in your heart to him. Say, Jesus, I heard today that you died on that cross for me. Please forgive me. I want to accept your act of service. I'm praying that you would forgive me and come and make your home inside of me today. Give me this new life that you're offering. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, thanks so much for coming, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks, and hopefully with a lot of bras.